43 days had passed since Queen Elsa of Arendelle had imprisoned Hans, and though he hadn't been allowed to spend much time outside his room, Hans would sometimes be escorted by the royal guards to the throne room upon Elsa's request. The two would spend hours discussing the possible implications of the letter that Hans had discovered hidden in the castle, and up until that 43rd night, Hans had been the only person in the entire kingdom who was aware of the contents of that letter. That night, Hans was sitting in the room that had become his prison cell, reading a book by candlelight, when he heard the sound of keys jingling on the other side of the door. He looked toward the window and thought to himself, it's later than usual. Hans closed his book and turned his attention to the door as it swung open to reveal a group of 3 guards. "The Queen requires your presence," said one of the guards as he gestured for Hans to follow them. "Yes, Commander," Hans said as he stood from his chair and nodded. Hans was ushered into the center of the group of guards as they made their way to the halls and began walking in the opposite direction of the throne room. The young Prince of Westergard looked around in confusion before asking, "Where are we going? The throne room's the other way." The commander of the guards continued his pace as he responded, "The library." "The library?" Hans thought to himself. "Why the library?" He had learned enough from living in the castle and interacting with the guards to tell from the guard's voice that he shouldn't ask any more questions, though. The guards escorted Hans into a room off to the right of one of the castle halls, and, inside, he was surprised at the number of books lining the large walls of the big open room. "Quite the collection of books, Queen Elsa," Hans began to say as he stepped into the room. "We don't have anything like this in the Southern Isles." Before he could get out another thought, Hans noticed that he and Elsa were not alone for the first time since his imprisonment. "What is he doing here?" a voice asked from across the room. Hans hung his head low. "Princess Anna, I'm sorry. I didn't know you'd be here." "You didn't expect me to be here?" Anna responded angrily. "This is my castle. I should be saying that to you." "Princess Anna, please calm down. I meant no offense," Hans said as he looked up to see Kristoff stepping forward. Kristoff held his hands out as though he was trying to defuse the situation. He looked over to Hans. "Man, I would not tell her to calm down. She hates that." Anna glared at Kristoff. "I mean, you shouldn't be talking to her at all," Kristoff said, correcting himself. Before any more arguing could ensue, a loud bang rang through the library, silencing everyone within. Hans, Anna, Kristoff, and the 3 guards turned their attention to a table that was off to the side of the room, which is where they saw Queen Elsa with her hand pressed down on it. "We don't have time for this," Elsa stated as she looked up toward the rest of the room. "Elsa, why did you bring him here? You said you needed to talk to us about something," Anna asked as she approached the table. Elsa took in a breath as she looked over to the guards who were still standing beside Hans. She gestured for them to bring him over to her. "Anna, listen, I don't expect you to understand this just yet, but we need him." Hans was taken aback by this statement. "Need me?" he thought to himself. But before he could ask about what she meant, Anna did it for him. "What do you mean we need him? What could we possibly need him for?" she questioned. "Listen, Anna, there are things that you don't know yet," Elsa began as she walked around the table and approached her sister. "And that's why I brought you here. That's why I brought you all here," she continued as she gestured to everyone in the room, including the 3 royal guards. Anna looked at her sister as she tried to understand where Elsa was coming from. She looked across the table at Hans, who was now staring down at the papers that were strewn across it. "But him?" asked Anna. "I don't get it." "Anna," Elsa said as she looked over to Hans, "though I cannot say I enjoy the snide prince's company, I don't think he's dangerous anymore." She placed her hands on Anna's shoulder and continued. "Besides, Olaf says that he's not all that bad." Anna couldn't help but let out a quiet chuckle. "Yeah, but Olaf likes everybody." The small smile that Anna got from thinking of Olaf quickly faded as she looked back toward Hans. "I just don't understand why he's here with us now." "He's here because of this," Elsa said as she lifted a piece of paper from the table and handed it to Anna. Hans recognized that parchment as the letter that he had found in the castle moments before his imprisonment. "Queen Elsa, is that?" "Yes, it is, Hans," Elsa said, cutting Hans off. "It's time that my sister knows." The queen looked at her sister and began to explain. This letter was left to us by Mom and Dad, and for some reason, we never received it." Kristoff stepped forward with an amazed look on his face. "You mean your parents wrote that?" "Yes, well, our mother did. And after you read it, you'll see what I've been looking into for the past couple of weeks." Elsa turned to Hans. "And as much as I hate to admit it, Hans has been helping me understand its meaning." "Him?" Anna responded. "How could he be of any help to anyone? All he cares about is himself." These words stung Hans as he closed his eyes and hung his head low in defeat. "Please, Anna," Elsa said, softly pulling her sister's attention toward her again. "Please just read the letter, and then we'll talk about all of this." Anna looked down at the piece of parchment in her hands and took a deep breath in preparation as she slowly began to unfold the paper. Her eyes began to well with tears as she began to read. "My dearest daughters, Elsa and Anna, how I love you. It saddens me to think that if you're reading this, it means that your father and I are no longer with you. I have informed my personal guard to deliver this letter along with a trunk of our belongings on your 18th birthday, Elsa. There is a lot that you do not know about the history between your father and me, and sadly, because of that history, we think you've ended up cursed with powers beyond any of our understanding. And the only people who might understand who or what you are have been lost to us ever since I left my homeland. There has been word, though, only in the deepest corners of the kingdoms, that there is another place where we might find the answers. The king and I have set out with the help of a ship captain named Arthur from Wesselton to find this place, and we hope to return with all of the answers to help you understand who you truly are. However, if this letter reaches you, that means you never found the answers that we were looking for. Elsa, nothing in this world is going to scare you as much as being alone. If you're reading this, you must learn to live the life that we know you deserve and open yourself up to the world. And Anna, please watch over your sister. You have your father's strength within you. Without us, you will both need it. Above all else, you have each other, and when the world seems like it has turned against you, that's the beacon that will guide you through the darkness. Your father wishes me to write that he loves you both and knows you will continue to keep the kingdom strong while we are away. I dare to say that I hope this letter never reaches you, as I want nothing more than to live out my life with you girls. But should the day come that I am taken from you, just know that you are the greatest gifts that I could have ever been given. With love, your mother and father." Anna looked up from the letter with tears streaming down her face. Kristoff came over and embraced her in his arms. A few moments of silence passed as everyone in the room thought about the letter. But the silence was broken by Anna when she turned to her sister and asked, "So, what does this mean?" "That's what Elsa began to say as she turned toward Hans and corrected herself. "That's what we've been trying to figure out." Anna looked over to Hans, her face still red after reading the letter from the former Queen Iduna. "Why him, though? You still haven't really explained how he ended up in the castle in the first place." "Because he's the one who brought me the letter, and the only other person who knew the entirety of its contents until just now," Elsa explained. Kristoff chimed in and asked, "Wait, if he brought you the letter, how do we even know it's real?" Elsa took a moment before answering, but when she responded, she explained to Kristoff, "He found it inside the castle, and it had our family's seal on it. There's no way it's a fake." "But how did—" Anna began before being cut off by Elsa, who already knew what she was going to ask. "He was hired by the Duke to find it and secure it for him," the Queen claimed. That's when Hans spoke up. "Blackmailed. He actually blackmailed me into breaking in and stealing it." "We weren't talking to you, Hans," Anna said before turning her attention back to Elsa. "So what does this mean?" Elsa then began moving around some of the papers on the table to clear off a space around a large map of the kingdoms and dukedoms in the area. "I've had Commander Reynolds do some investigating, and he's discovered that the ship captain Mom spoke of still lives in Wesselton." Hans' eyes widened at the news. "Hang on, Queen Elsa. If your parents' ship went down in the Dark Sea, how did its captain possibly make it out alive?" "That's my question exactly, Hans," Elsa responded as she pointed toward the map on the table. "Now it would only take us a day to get to Wesselton." "A day? It's at least a 3-day ride from here to Wesselton," Kristoff exclaimed. "Oh, we're not riding. We're sailing," said Queen Elsa. Anna leaned in to get Elsa's attention. "Are you sure that this is the best idea? We don't even know what to expect when we get there." Elsa looked over to Hans before responding. "It's okay, Anna. Hans has been there before and will know his way around the town." "But what if something happens?" Anna asked with concern in her voice. "Anna, we'll be fine, I promise. I have a plan," Elsa responded as she stared deeply into the map. "I will have my answers," she thought to herself.